Welcome to the Salisbury Area Chamber of Commerce Education Committee Network's PAC 14 TV show, Education is Everybody's Business. My name is Lad Colston. I am a business member with the Chamber and the CEO of Sustainable Visions, LLC. Today's guest is Mrs. Cathy Diekmann, who is a program officer for the Community Foundation of the Eastern Shore, home-based here in Salisbury, Maryland. She will provide us with a comprehensive overview of the Foundation's scholarship program that supports Eastern Shore students who are pursuing college and post-secondary career trade, training, and education. For our viewing audience, today's educational topic is educational support, college, and career scholarships offered by the Community Foundation of the Eastern Shore. Sponsored by the Community Foundation of the Eastern Shore, Chamber CEO Bill Chambers and our Education Committee Network members want this TV show to be a source of community awareness and knowledge of topics that impact education and workforce development here on Maryland's Lower Eastern Shore. We appreciate your listening in and providing us with your feedback on its usefulness. Please subscribe if you're viewing this show on YouTube, and a thumbs up if you like it. For those of you who do not know, the Community Foundation of the Eastern Shore distributes over 400 scholarships a year, ranging in financial awards from $500 up to $5,000 per year, which can be used by students for tuition, fees, room, board, books, and educational and trade supplies, such as a computer or lab equipment. Some of these scholarships are earmarked for specific high school graduates, like Wycomico High School or Snow Hill High School in Worcester County. Some of them are earmarked for specific trades, like healthcare or teaching, and some for your selected college or trade school, such as West Virginia University, Warwick Community College, or the University of Maryland, Eastern Shore. Let's welcome my guest for this episode, Ms. Cathy Diekmann.
Thank you for inviting me, Lad.
Oh, it's always a pleasure. For many of our viewers who are unaware of the Community Foundation of the Eastern Shore, let's start with just some general information, if you will, okay, to everyone. Mm-hmm. We'll start with what are some of the processes and the actual mission of the Community Foundation of the Eastern Shore.
Okay. The Community Foundation is a nonprofit organization. We were founded in 1984 by some community leaders who had a vision that an organization that could receive and grow and invest charitable donations into the community would be great for the community to grow and prosper. So that's what we do. We receive donations, we grow them through investment, and then we distribute them through grants, scholarships, nonprofit support, and other charitable endeavors. In short, our mission is to connect people who care to causes that matter.
Oh, wow, I like that. To causes that matter, which brings us directly to the area that you're involved with, which pertains to scholarships. And I will say that scholarships are very important to education and career development. And so, where does the money come from that goes into these scholarships?
Yeah, that's a common misconception. Folks sometimes think that it's public money that comes from the government, but it actually comes from local donors, just generous people who have a heart for a particular cause, and in my case, in scholarships. They have a heart for education. They want to support students that have aspirations to go to college or trade school, and they create a scholarship that then lives in perpetuity. Because they invest that money in the foundation, we grow it over time, we hold that asset, and then each year it distributes a scholarship. So we have, some donors who will mention us in their estate plan, and a portion of their estate is distributed to the Community Foundation after their passing. We have civic groups like Rotary that create scholarships. We have quite a few that come out of schools, like Y High has a number of scholarships, class of 55, class of 58, 63, 67.
Wow.
And they kind of compete amongst each other to create, scholarships for Y High graduates.
Now, are those types of funds directed to student graduates from that particular school? For example, if you have a Y High class of 55, that scholarship is for a Y High student?
Correct.
Okay.
We have 222 scholarship funds, and they're all a little different. There's common threads through all of them, but they have different criteria. So some may be specifically for Y High graduates. Some may be specifically for students going into engineering, regardless of the school from which they graduate. Some are particularly for kids going to a trade school or directly into the workforce in HVAC and may need either ongoing education or to pay for their tools and equipment.
And a lot of students out there, parents included, are unaware of the diversity of scholarships that you have available. I saw where some are directed to students that want to major in medicine versus those that want to major, as you indicated, HVAC systems. There's such a wide variation of scholarships that really, I think parents and students and mentors who care about students need to be aware of.
Yeah, that's something I really do want to get across, because there are some assumptions that scholarships are only for those, top tier students of their, with the greatest GPA and involved in all the clubs. And, those students are great, but there is something almost for everyone. And I do want to encourage students that have an aspiration to go to college to look for scholarship opportunities that match, who they are. So that's one assumption, that college scholarships are only for those going to four-year schools.
Right.
Many of ours are for 2- or 4-year colleges, and some are for trade schools or, like I said, to purchase equipment if they're going directly into the workforce.
So for those that are thinking about Warwick Community College, you might want to check this out.
We hold a lot of Warwick's scholarships, and they also have quite a few that they manage independently, and they're super supportive and helpful. So if you're attending Warwick, be sure to check out their scholarship office.
Awesome. Which brings me to the big question. How does the Community Foundation of the Eastern Shore scholarship process work?
Okay. It starts with the donor, that has an idea to create a fund that will support a scholarship. And we work with them, to hone their intent. What do they hope to accomplish with this scholarship? And then from there, we create an application. And depending on the criteria for that scholarship, we then promote it and share it with either the schools or the students that are directed towards that scholarship. So let's say it's one for Y High. Then I share that scholarship with the Y High guidance department. Most high schools have a guidance counselor that's in charge of scholarships. We put it on our website. Anytime someone calls or asks for information, we direct them to our website. And then it's up to the student. That's where the magic happens, because they need to know that there are scholarships available and to complete that process. So the guidance counselors may, they sometimes tell me they know of a particular student, like the Schul scholarship is for wrestlers. So they contact the wrestlers at their school and say, you should apply for this scholarship. So then it's on the student to complete the application. Once the application is submitted, before the deadline, then a committee reviews all the eligible scholarships and makes a decision. And we have a variety of committees as well. Some folks assume that the Community Foundation decides all these scholarships. We don't. There are far too many for us to manage that. So We have about 10 or 12 scholarships that our committee decides, but each high school also has a scholarship committee that decides a pool of scholarships, not just for the Community Foundation, but for other organizations and ones they hold internally. And then there's quite a few community groups that are staffed by volunteers, like the Rotary or some family scholarships that are in memory of a particular individual. They may decide that scholarship. But I manage all of them to help ensure that they're following the guidelines by the IRS and best practices. Then students are informed that they're awarded that scholarship. Many of them are informed at their senior awards ceremony, but some request that the award letter is sent home. Then I often, chase down those students to make sure that they understand they've awarded this scholarship and that they need to accept the scholarship. The check doesn't just appear.
Right.
They have to accept it and provide what we call proof of enrollment that shows they are attending a post-secondary school. And then the check is sent to their institution, not to the student.
That's very important, because I think a lot of students think that the check is going to come to their home, and that's not going to be the case. It's actually going to the institution of learning where they have selected and they have been enrolled in.
There are a few exceptions to that.
Okay.
Just a few, like the ones that I mentioned, where if the scholarship determines they can use their award to purchase, say, HVAC equipment or welding equipment. But again, that's usually facilitated through the school to make the purchase. And there are a few awards. We won't go down that rabbit hole, but awards are slightly different than scholarships, and that might go to the student. But the majority of them that we process go to an institution of higher ed.
Wow. Okay.
It's a lot of administration, and that's kind of the beauty of working with the Community Foundation, that we have a staff to manage all those, pieces and parts to make sure that all happens. And it's something that, I do every day and works into my workflow. It's not, just a notion to say I'm going to start a scholarship and a 501c3 to oversee all the processes involved.
Yeah, and looking at the number of scholarships that fall under the umbrella of the Community Foundation is just mind-boggling. And just to sit here with you and know that, wow, as you enter into the fall and the winter, all of this is going to kind of come together and you're going to be responsible for
I'm here for it,
Wow, that's great.
That's my jam, because I know it is helping local students achieve their aspirations for education, career development, and opportunities.
Yep, and we want our students to be successful, and we want them to help build the workforce here on the Lower Eastern Shore. So, great. Let's start with 3 targeted audiences, if you will, related to the scholarships. Let's start with students, for example. What are some of the common misconceptions that students have about applying for a scholarship?
Yeah, I mentioned one of them, that they assume they're only for 4-year college, but we have a variety of scholarships for different purposes. Many of them are 2-year or 4-year or trade schools. They might assume that they have to have a high GPA. Now, some of our scholarships do have a specific GPA eligibility requirement, but many of them don't. You've mentioned some that are for particular career tracks, like the medical field, engineering. We have a variety for those going to trade schools. Some assume that there's too much competition, like this only goes to the STAR students. And, nationally, over $100 million is left on the table for scholarships for lack of applications. So that's key. Wayne Gretzky, famous hockey player, says something like, you'll miss 100% of the shots you don't take. So you've got to put your hat in the ring, and complete the application. It's not just for the STAR students. I've heard some students say it's not worth my time. If they hear, because our scholarship amounts vary, the minimum is $500. We have some that go up to $5,000 and even a couple beyond, depending on what the fund can distribute in a given year. But, let's do the math. If it takes even 5 hours to complete a scholarship application, because that involves not just the form, but getting letters of recommendation and possibly writing an essay. But let's say it takes 5 hours.
Mhm.
And that student gets the scholarship,
Mhm.
the $500 award.
Mhm.
Well, for 5 hours, they were paid $100 an hour
Exactly.
to get that $500. I don't know any students that, work a part-time job for $100 an hour. They're more likely around $15 an hour. So that means they have to work 33.3 hours
Mhm.
to get $500, and
Mhm.
that's not even counting what you're going to lose for taxes.
That's right.
So it's a pretty good investment of time, and that return on investment is even greater if it's a $1,000 or $2,000 scholarship.
Or $5,000.
There are some, yeah. And then some folks think, well, all the same students get all the same scholarship or get the most scholarships. And it might look that way at senior awards ceremony if a particular student has made multiple trips to the stage to receive a scholarship. But the bottom line is that student also applied for every scholarship for which they were eligible.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes there wasn't much competition.
Mm-hmm.
By IRS guidelines, scholarships do have to be competitive.
Mm-hmm.
They can't just decide, we want to give this scholarship to Joe Blow.
Gotcha.
They have to have multiple applicants, or at least the opportunity for multiple applicants,
Mhm.
and to be reviewed by a committee of 3 or more,
Mhm.
and then decided. But you're not going to win if you don't
You
apply.
don't apply. And I suggest that each and every student really look at the criteria that's
Mhm.
required for each and every scholarship application. Because don't just generalize that all of them require a 3.5 or 3.9
Mhm.
GPA. It could be just an interest
Right?
in a particular trade.
Mhm.
And you have that interest, so
Mhm.
you apply. Do you encourage students to apply for more than just one scholarship?
Oh yes, they should apply for every scholarship for which they're eligible. And that's why they do need to do some work in
Mhm.
terms of looking at each scholarship, reviewing the criteria,
Mhm.
seeing if they're eligible, and asking for help if they need it. But we have some really interesting scholarships. One in particular that there's only one criteria, and this was from a donor who had, I think, a good sense of humor. His name was Anthony. The only criteria is that the applicants have to have a first name of either Anthony, Antoinette, or some version of that.
Interesting.
That's all they have to do. There's no essay, there's no GPA. And then the money is evenly divided among those applicants.
Fantastic.
We have a new scholarship that was just created this year
Mhm.
in honor of Tony Sarbanes.
Yes.
Many people may know Tony. He's
Know him
been
well.
very involved, devoted his life to public service. He was in the Army for many years. He's served in various capacities here in Wacomico County Schools, from teacher to principal to administrator, sits on many committees for nonprofit organizations. So his friends wanted to, recognize that and encourage that public service commitment in young people and recognize those that already do that.
Mhm.
So the Tony and Billy Sarbanes Public Service Award is eligible now in Wacomico County. Any student from Wacomico County schools could be nominated. There's one nomination from each of the high schools.
Mhm.
And then among those nominations, one student who really rises above in a commitment to public service. And that student was Jaden Sampson this
Wow.
year. And it was really sweet to see him recognized,
Yes.
to see his mother react in the audience, because I was there that night. And his essay said something to the effect of, I may not be the brightest, top tier student or the best athlete on the field, but I'm committed to public service and I have a future and gifts to give in the area. So it was really wonderful to see him recognized.
That was a great reward for that as well. So what do students need to know about the scholarship program? I guess in terms of timeline, if you will, and I guess the selection process.
Right, I've referenced some of that.
Yes, you did.
The scholarship season for me really goes year round, but it starts generally in November. We open our website access to the scholarships on November 1st. And that's just go to our website, which is cfes.org/scholarships, and scroll down and you'll see on that page a large chart. It's blue and green, and there's a whole list of lots of different scholarships. If you want to see a particular one, you click on that, and that link will open the application, download it, and complete it, and all the steps involved. So that's the first step, is to check out our website.
Yeah.
Many high schools also have an online system that houses sort of all the information seniors in particular need to know in preparation for graduation, in applying to college, and obtaining scholarships. So my understanding is our scholarships are linked there. And then of course you can ask your school counselor. You know, they have many of those applications on hard copy or links to them. They can, you know, support and try to connect you to the types of scholarships that you might likely be eligible for. But then there's some fine-tuning things that have to do with just following instructions, you know, and I get it. High school students are busy.
Yep.
They have a lot to do their senior year, but it's important that those scholarship applications are accurate so that you can be considered. So we've mentioned applying for all that you're eligible, but you also need to follow the directions and make sure that you know the deadline and that you create a timeline, you know, for getting all those requirements done. For example, asking folks to be your letter of recommendation if that's required. Some scholarships might require an essay. I get a ton of scholarships the week before they're due. Most of ours are due April 1st.
Okay, April the 1st.
So you have really from November 1st until April 1st.
Okay.
Granted, some are still applying for schools or trying to figure out where, you know, what they're doing, where they're going.
Yeah.
But you ideally would get that scholarship in and to the right location, because they don't all come to us.
Gotcha.
Some of our scholarships go to the high school. Some go to those committees that I mentioned, run by community volunteers, and some come to us. We've had some applications in the past that went to the wrong location. You know, the student made a mistake or misunderstood where it was supposed to go. And, you know, we will try to get it to the right place, but sometimes it's too late. You know, if it comes in on April 1st to the wrong location, it may not be reviewed.
Which brings us to the second group, target group, that I think we need to appeal to in this program, and that is your supportive parents, your guardians, and also your mentors, because these are the individuals that support students and want them to succeed, and they need to be aware of this process as well. So in specific, what are some tips for parents, guardians, and mentors to support their students in this scholarship process?
Well, I love that you mentioned support, and support can have a lot of different looks depending on the student and that adult. Some students are very capable, or at least, you know, think they know what they're doing, and they don't really welcome our support. But I think it is good for adults to check in and say, you know, have you looked at all the scholarships that are available? What can I do to help? You know, what is your timeline for this? Would you like me to read your essay? You know, it is, when you're writing an essay, it's good to get another pair of eyes on it so that it stands out and you're telling a story that's compelling, you know. Confirm those requirements. Did you attach your letters of recommendation? Just that extra bit of support, you know, might make a difference between an application that can be included in the review or not, because if it's missing the attachments, then we don't review them. Adults in the young people's lives can also ask about internal scholarships to the specific school. If the student knows, for example, they're going to SU, ask when you're visiting the school, what scholarship opportunities do you have that my student might be eligible for? Rather than just waiting for that information to come to you, put yourself out there and ask. They can also check out other scholarship opportunities. You know, ask the guidance counselor what other scholarships are there besides what CFES holds. There are some online sites that you can check out, like bold.org. It has a search engine in there, so you can search for national scholarships, but there's no reason why a local kid couldn't win it, you know. Maybe you have special circumstances, like you're the child of a veteran or a single parent child, or you're going into culinary So you can search by interest area or family circumstances and see what you might be eligible. Apply for those too.
Oh, without question. And I'm just amazed. When I worked in the school system, I encouraged the students that I worked with to actually go to an awards program. Okay, if you're a sophomore or a junior in high school, make an effort to go to the awards program just so that you can see those students that got the scholarships and just look at how much money some of them are able to acquire. Maybe that'll become an incentive, if you will, okay, to get your act together so that you can apply and hopefully you will walk across the stage in your senior year.
Yeah, I appreciate that you mentioned the role of mentors.
Yes.
Because while our classroom teachers and guidance counselors are tasked with so many things and their heart is really in it, they do it to the best of their ability, but they can't do all things all the time. So if you're a mentor through Big Brothers Big Sisters or a church group or a coach, take a few minutes if you could and ask those seniors or rising juniors what scholarships they've applied for. You know, I mentioned that we have some for athletes. That includes, depending on the school, baseball, field hockey, quite a few for golf. You know, so those coaches out there, ask your athletes if they've applied for those scholarships.
Outstanding. Now,
And then one last thing I do want to mention is that ideally parents or guardians complete the FAFSA. It's a free,
very important.
Free form for federal aid.
Yes.
It's a hassle. Last year was really a challenge because they changed a lot of the format, the way it was processed, and there were delays. So it was unfortunate, but I think the Department of Ed will have, you know, a better process for the coming year. But that's what helps students identify whether they're eligible for federal aid. And there are some scholarships, more national than Community Foundation ones, that do require some data from the FAFSA. So try to get that completed, and if you're having trouble with it, ask for help. You know, it could be the guidance counselor or the schools you're applying to. I know Warwick was very helpful this past year in assisting parents and guardians to complete the FAFSA.
That's right, because they do offer workshops for parents. Outstanding. Now to our last group, most important one. And since this show, our title is Education is Everybody's Business, let's look at the community role as it pertains to supporting and facilitating these scholarships. So what would you like to say to our community supporters of scholarships, whether they be businesses or business people or even just people that are interested in helping our students?
Right. Even if you're not interested in helping students, I'd like to say we need you.
All right.
Because really, the educational opportunities for our young people is in everybody's interest, because a well-trained and well-educated workforce increases the prosperity and the strength of our community for everyone. So there may be a role for you even if you don't have a student in high school, or your kids are grown, you know, or you're a volunteer but didn't think that there was a role for you. There probably is. Certainly there's opportunities for donors. You know, as I've mentioned, we've had individuals, families, businesses, civic groups, all have started different funds with us that would benefit students well beyond, you know, even their lifetime, because our funds last in perpetuity.
Wow.
But you may have a windfall as a business. Maybe you have a particularly really successful year and your accountant tells you, you know, we're going to get hit with taxes if we don't increase our charitable giving. Well, an option would be to open a fund with the Community Foundation.
Yes.
Maybe like these classes, particularly I used Y High as an example, but we also have some at other schools, class of 66 at James N. Bennett. We have a couple graduates of Mardella that have individual scholarship funds. So if you're thinking of maybe toying with the idea of opening a scholarship fund, I would encourage you to contact me at the Community Foundation. And anyone really can be a philanthropist. You know, we tend to assume it's folks with deep pockets, but we have a couple funds that welcome really any contribution, particularly the Lower Shore Scholarship Fund. I mean, anyone can contribute to an existing fund if they want.
Okay.
But the Lower Shore Scholarship Fund is used in particular for our 3 higher ed institutions on the Lower Shore.
Oh, wow.
Salisbury University, Warwick Community College, and UMES.
All right.
So those are, again, held with us, and then any contribution of any size is welcomed, and that fund grows over time, and then each year it's divided in 3 and distributed to those 3 institutions to give to students with the most need. And that brings up the point of the types of scholarships that I personally really want to see grow.
Okay.
And those are for the students in the most need, whether it's greatest financial need. I mean, everyone has challenges paying for college these days because the price has, just skyrocketed in the past decade. But there are some folks that are really without scholarships or other financial support.
Okay.
It's just out of reach.
Yeah.
Also, those students that, may have experienced life struggles, maybe they had some tough years, so their GPA isn't, where they want it, or they've had some personal issues that have made it difficult for them to finish high school. That doesn't mean that they're not a good investment in college. They know how to work hard, they know how to overcome. I'd love to see some scholarships, particularly for those students. Or for the students that I call up-and-comers. They may not be the ones that are the class president or in all the clubs, but again, they are looking for opportunities. They want to improve their lot in life. They have aspirations for higher education, and they might need scholarships to help them get there.
Oh, this is fantastic. Do you have any fraternities or sororities that actually donate into scholarships? I'm just kind of curious whether or not.
Not that I can think of off the top of my head. It tends to be more, class of, and my hunch is those are located within the higher ed institutions.
Gotcha.
So there might be fraternities or sororities at SU that then create their own scholarships, and they have a scholarship department that oversees those.
Gotcha. I was just thinking of members of fraternities and sororities that are encouraging students to go to a particular university where those students could look. But the Community Foundation in the Eastern Shore is just a wealth of resources, and I just wanted to highlight the scholarship piece because it's so critical to workforce development here on the Lower Eastern Shore. And personally and professionally, I can't thank you enough for all the work that you're doing.
It's my privilege, my pleasure.
Okay. Is there anything else that you would want to share with our viewer audience?
No, I would just encourage them to check out our website because there's lots of information there, not only about scholarships, but about nonprofit development, about the various funds we hold, opportunities for getting involved as a volunteer or committee member. So check us out at cfes.org.
All right, you heard that. Check it out. Go to that website. In the meantime, thank you so much, and I wish you a very successful year.
Thank you, Lad.
As we close out this informative episode, I would like to personally and professionally thank Ms. Cathy Diekmann and wish her much success as she enters this year's scholarship season. Well, this brings us to a close for year 2. Please tune in as we create a special series of YouTube shorts from our 5 episodes this year. If you missed seeing any of these episodes, these shorts will provide a quick glimpse of what you missed. Until then, remember, education is everybody's business.